In this video, I'm going to reveal a sneaky reason why many businesses fail, unfortunately, and I'm talking about not having a strategy in place. And before you say to me, Tamer, we're a tiny little company. We've got enough problems on a day-to-day basis as it is, and we've got a lot of things to worry about. We don't need to worry about strategy. Strategy is for like stuffy executives in stuffy boardrooms, having stuffy meetings, coming up with stuffy fancy terminology that goes into a binder on a shelf, never sees the light of day, and we don't need to worry about any of that. It's a waste of time. Wrong. Seriously, wrong. You need to have a strategy from day one in the tiniest of businesses. I don't care how small your business is and what you're going through. If you don't have a strategy, I have seen it time and time again, unfortunately, in growing my own businesses, in investing in businesses, in succeeding and failing in businesses, in helping other businesses grow, time and time again. No strategy, no success. It's inevitable. Sooner or later, it's game over, and we don't want that for you. And when I'm talking about strategy, I'm not talking about, goals. That's a completely different thing. And I'm not talking about templates that you have to sit there and fill in. I am going to break down what the meaning of strategy really is and why it's so crucial for you to have it in your business in place so that you can improve and dramatically increase the chances of your success. But before we get on with the video, please hit that like button and that subscribe thingy and the notification bell, because when you hit the notification bell, you will be notified every time a new video comes out on this channel where we help you as a small business to grow without the growing pains so that you can have the business and lifestyle you set out to have in the first place. Without further ado, let's get on with the video. Hit it. Plans. Who needs plans anyway? I mean, isn't it fun? Let's go out with some friends and see where the night takes us and just keep going, and maybe it's fun, maybe it's not, and well, maybe sometimes, but you don't want that for your business. Please do not do that for your business. You need to make sure you know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, how do you know you've got there, and how do you measure how well you're doing in order to get there? We need to make sure that we have a strategy in place in your business right from the start, because it is crucial. Remember when I talked about, in this video, I spoke about Ben Hunt Davis, and when he said, will it make the boat go faster? He was absolutely hell-bent on making sure that everything he did was working towards that vision. And the strategy he had was basically, if it makes the boat go faster, we're going to do it. If it doesn't make the boat go faster, we're not going to do it. And that's the kind of thing that we want to start implementing inside your business. A strategy is not a set of goals, because I've seen a lot of people who sit there and say, right, here's a strategy, let me put down some goals. This is what I want to achieve in 3 years' time, and this is what I want to achieve as a goal in the next year. And here's a smart set of goals, and it's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's, realistic, and it's timely, and I've put my goal down and I'm working towards it. That's not a strategy. It's still important for you to have these goals. However, we need to take a little step back to understand why we need to have a strategy and what it is exactly. So the word strategy, in my opinion, gets flung around a lot, is overused, and probably in many cases misused. A lot of times people think of strategy as a goal, and they say, this is my strategy for the end of the year. I want to achieve X, and that is a goal. Goals are great, and you are going to probably have a whole bunch of goals within an overall strategy, but a goal in and of itself is not a strategy. So what is a strategy? Let's break this down right now. A strategy is a set of choices that you're going to make in order to make you navigate through obstacles to get to your long-term destination. This is the key here. We've got a long-term destination, which is your vision or objective, and you're basically saying, right, how am I going to get there? What are the choices that I'm going to have to make? And this can be different for every single business, because you've got two sides that you need to look at for your business. One of them is the customer that you're trying to serve, and the second one is you and what you want to get out of your business. Do you want to get out of it a comfortable lifestyle, or do you want to grow it into a massive conglomerate or a business that has an IPO and gets a lot of investment? And the strategy you use for either of these two is going to be completely different. In the same way, are you going to focus locally or are you going to focus internationally and compete? So here are the things that you need to sit down first and decide where your business is going and where your business is heading. In the same way that you put in a sat nav, you say, here's my destination, and the sat nav sits there and works out possible options and routes for you in order to navigate through those obstacles to get you to your destination. So figure out where your destination is first. Sit down and ask yourself a whole bunch of questions. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What is it that we can do? Who are we trying to serve? Why are we trying to serve these people? And what am I trying to get out of this particular business? When you start looking at your particular customer, then you say, right, what is the need that I'm going to focus on to solve and provide for that particular customer so that I can focus on being unique? And in that case, I can stand out in a competitive market and have that competitive edge. What are the choices that we're going to have to make to do that? And what are the choices that we're going to have to say no to so that we don't do that? And this was one of the things that I was talking about in this video here, where, having to say no is actually just as important as having to say yes. You're going to have to make a list of yeses of things that you're going to do, but also equally important, you're going to have to make a list of no's of the things that you're absolutely not going to do, because that's not going to get you to your destination, so that when these things happen, you say, no, I am not going to do this. This is not what I need right now. That overall is essentially what your strategy is. Let's break this down a little bit more. It probably breaks down to about 3 steps. And the first step is really trying to diagnose the challenge. And what I mean by diagnosing the challenge is it's exactly the same way as you going into a doctor's surgery and basically saying, doctor, I've got a problem. And the doctor's going to say, all right, tell me about your problem. And you sit there and explain, you say, I feel this and I've got pain here and this and this. And the doctor then keeps on asking you, all right, what is it? Is it this? Or, what about this? What about this? And what the doctor is doing is that they're excluding certain things until they come up with what the real problem is. And that real problem in your business can actually be you. It might be, actually, I need to remove myself from the business and I need to find a way to actually get in other people so that they can get me to that destination. And once you've done all of that and you've identified, here is my destination and here are the challenges that are stopping me from getting there, both internally and externally. And this could be at any size company. Like I said, it could be a tiny one-person company or it could be a large size company. It applies, but you just scale it down to the size that you've got. So once we've got our diagnosis, the next step is quite literally, what is the approach? What is the game plan that we are going to take so that we can overcome this problem that we've just diagnosed? So like the doctor, for example, once they've diagnosed that condition and they know what the problem is, what is the therapeutic approach that they want to try and use? Are they going to take a holistic approach, or are they going to take a medication approach or a surgical approach? What is the approach that they're going to try and take? And what is the framework that stands in that, and what is the structure that makes that happen? Let's try and bring it down to your business. What functions are you going to need to have in the business? What people are you going to need to have in the business? Are you going to need to remove yourself? Are we going to need to be competitive? Are we going to need to start doing some market research? Are we going to need to introduce new products? Or are we going to need to cut back on products? And this is actually something that Steve Jobs did. If you haven't read Good Strategy, Bad Strategy as a book, I really advise reading it. It's a fascinating read. I'm going to link it down below here. In that book, the author actually speaks about him interviewing Steve Jobs and talking to Steve Jobs about the time when Apple was about to go bankrupt after they'd fired him, and they brought him back in as an interim CEO, and what he actually did and why he took the steps that he took to actually get Apple to where it is today. And what he'd done is he said, I realized that the company was bleeding cash. And that was the first problem that he diagnosed. And also, I realized that our product line was completely confusing to our customers. Another thing. He also said, I realized that we didn't have any competitive advantage anymore. And we needed to find a way to be able to do that. Another problem. So these were the challenges that he had identified and diagnosed in front of him. And the next step for him, what he literally said was, okay, what's my game plan? What is my strategic approach? And actually he said, here are several approaches that I'm going to take so that I can overcome these challenges. I'm going to actually scale back and sit back and actually wait. And he actually said that. He said, I cut back everything. literally everything, nearly all the product lines from several hundred down to like a handful, cancelled printers, cancelled everything, cancelled contracts with national retailers, 5 out of 6, introduced a web store so that all the logistics could be simplified, and then sat back and waited. Not only that, he went to Microsoft, their competitor, and convinced Bill Gates to invest $150 million into Apple at the time, because he said if Apple goes out of business, you're going to struggle even more with the Department of Justice in terms of your struggles at the moment on monopolies. And you need us in business so that you can say that you're not a monopoly. So a lot of things that he sat there and actually said, right, from a strategic perspective, here's the problem. We're bleeding cash. We're not competitive. We're confusing. What was the sort of the guiding frameworks? He basically said, we need investment into the company. We need to sit back and cut back onto our product lines. And we need to sit back and wait until we hit the next big thing. And this was actually an eye-opener for even for me. He sat there and he said, I'm gonna sit and wait for the next big thing. And that was at the time when the interview happened, was actually before the next big thing happened, which was 2 years down the line when the iPod was released. And what he literally did is he sat back and waited. And this is something we as small businesses do not do. We sit there and we try something for a couple of days or a couple of times, whether it's like, let's try some Facebook ads, or let's try and have some videos on YouTube, or let's do this and try it for a few days, or we try it for a few times, it doesn't work, it doesn't grow, and we give up and we say that didn't work. And what all successful businesses do is they are very patient, they are very meticulous, they are very consistent in what they do, and they are very, 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 very strategic in the choices that they make of what they're going to do as a list of yeses and what they're not going to do as a list of no's. And I talked about the importance of saying no in this video up here. Having a list of no's is equally as important as having a list of yeses. This is what we're going to do, and this is what we're not going to do, and we're going to start saying no to places where actually it's quite challenging to say no to. He went and said no to 5 out of the 6 national retailers and said, we're not going to actually have Apple products in your stores anymore. And that's quite a really brave decision to do. And we need to take that and scale it down to our size and say, right, we're going to start saying no to certain clients because they are causing us a lot of time and effort and energy. And we're going to start saying no to clients that are paying us too little money. And we're going to start saying no to people that are asking us to do too much. And maybe we're going to have to start saying no to me, or I'm getting too much involved in the business and I need to get someone else in. And there can be so many other problems, both internally and externally. And then the third step is putting down a set of actions to address and actually try and navigate you towards your destination. And that's where the goals come in. And see, the goals come in right at the end in terms of what you're doing here. So these are the goals, and you say, these are the goals that I'm going to do. These are the tasks that I'm going to achieve. This is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, and this is when I'm going to do it by. And by all means, at that time, put down your SMART goals with your specific and measurable and achievable and sort of realistic and timely. Put all of that stuff down, but it needs to be within an overall strategic framework that you have put down for your business, and you've said, this is where I'm going. These are the particular problems that are in my way at the moment, and this is how I'm going to actually put down a framework and a structure that's going to address these problems, and these are the set of actions that I'm going to take place in order to get me to where I want to go. And that's having a proper strategy inside your business. It's really, really important, and I cannot stress enough how important it is to be able to have a strategy inside your business. I'll see you next time. And the strategy you use. Right, okay, let's do that again.